Oh, great. Councilmember Blvd just walked in. Did you want to say hi, Councilmember Blvd?
Hi, welcome. I apologize for my casual appearance. I work at San Leandro as a football coach. I literally just got off the field. Forgive the informal appearance, but I'm here to listen to everything that's going on, find out what the needs are, and hear from our engineering department just like you.
Great. Welcome, everybody. Hi, my name is Keith Cook. I'm the Engineering and Transportation Director here for the City of San Leandro, and I'd like to welcome you all here today as we talk about, we're calling it the Neptune Drive Shoreline Flood Protection Project. Now, this is kind of a different type of project for the city, as it is really, at this point, more exploratory than anything. So what's happened is, as you may have well heard, is that the firm maps or the flood insurance rating maps have changed for this area. And in fact, Alameda County knocked on our door a couple of years ago and said, hey, some new areas moved into the floodplain, and the county is primarily responsible for flood management, but there is a location that we don't have any jurisdiction over. And so, for you to make a difference for properties being in the floodplain, the city would have to get involved with the process. Now, the county had a project that they were going to do that would start the process of removing the homes from the floodplain, but their project in and of it by itself would not solve the problem. And so they said, city, you're going to have to look at whether you want to take on a project if the property owners in the area that are impacted are interested for taking on this floodplain issue. So the council directed us, the engineering staff, to at least start the preliminary process. In some areas, the communities or the developers take on this all on their own. It's not necessarily a city directive to do this type of work. But our council saw that it was in the best interest for our residents and asked the engineering department to take on this initial study to look at what would need to be done, and then also reach out to the community to find out if there is support for this type of project, because the community that is benefiting from this project would need to contribute to some of the costs. And so tonight we're going to kind of go through what we're talking about right now. We have our consultant that's helping us with the outreach process, that's going to talk with us, Daniel Woods, our senior engineer, Austin Osakwe, and our project manager, John O'Driscoll, will kind of talk about the details of the project that we're proposing that would eliminate our flood risk for about 1,000 properties. And then we have Sarah Mayers, part of our consultant teams, that talks about the process that we'll be using to potentially finance this project. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle and let her take it away.
Well, I'm so glad to see so many of you here. This is really a great turnout. We knew from the survey responses that we had seen that there were a number of you that were interested in paying attention, asking questions. A lot of smart individuals out here, some really good questions, some hard questions. And my name's Danielle Wood, and as Keith mentioned, we are here tonight because of the FEMA coastal study that redesignated your parcels into a special flood hazard area. So the city is doing what all public agencies are trying to do, and they are being very transparent and working really hard to get the information out to you about the financing of this project. Because as Keith mentioned, they want to know if this is something that you want to support, if you support the construction and if you're willing to pay for a portion of this process, of this project, sorry. The certified levies will remove your property from the special risk and move you down to a moderate risk flood zone or a moderate risk zone, which then will have effects on your flood insurance. This map here, we have one on the wall there at the back that you can see. This is FEMA's designation of the special flood hazard area. So I'm sure many of you are looking at this and can see where your property lies. Civic Mike, we were brought on board to reach out to you and try and engage you in whatever way we could to get you to this meeting tonight. So show of hands, who received one of these postcards? Good, good. Those that didn't raise your hand, we can thank your neighbors for tracking you down and getting you here. And any of your neighbors that you're talking to about this project and they haven't heard about it, they aren't receiving our flyers, they haven't taken the survey, please encourage them to do so, because their questions may be questions that all of you didn't know you needed to ask. The survey results that we got, we received 83 responses, and I know that number does not seem very impressive, but in the world of surveys, that is really good. That's about 8%. I'm sorry. If you can't hear me back there, just wave at me and I will try to remember to move this to my mouth. So 8%, and we had right about 80% of you that noticed an increase in your flood insurance premiums. So with a show of hands, who has seen an increase in your flood insurance premiums? Okay, and anyone willing to share about how much you've seen? Yes.
I'm John Pearsall. I'm the president of Marina HOA, which is right back of us over here. There's 276 units. We used to pay $0 in flood insurance, and last year we got the wonderful gift of $192,000 payable within 30 days.
Wow.
We've been hit heavy.
Well, that is an extreme example. Yes.
Well, I think that when you ask, when I saw the question, an increase in flood insurance, I didn't have flood insurance before December 18th.
Okay.
So I didn't see an increase, but I never had to pay it.
Right.
And, yeah,
And do you know how much your premiums are now?
yes, I do.
Okay.
They're very low because I took the highest possible deductible.
Okay.
And I told my agent, shop it.
Okay. Yes.
Mine went from $0 to $4,300.
Wow. Wow. That is a shocking check to write. Yes. So that's why we're here tonight. Those examples exactly, even with the small. Wow. Okay. Okay. So that's very different. Yes. You don't have flood insurance. So there can be multiple reasons why you may not be required to have flood insurance, depending on if you have a mortgage or not. You know, the type of home that you're in. So that's why I asked the question to see the varying rates, because depending on your circumstance, the assessment for this project your opinion of it may change based on how much you're paying or if you don't have to pay for flood insurance. But on the same hand, the city is looking at livability for your property. So flood insurance covers you in the event that there's a flood, but they're looking at trying to keep the area livable and prevent the flood from happening. So that's one of the key factors, but there's many other factors that come into why you would agree to have this project constructed. This is our Civic Mike website. This is where we have been taking all the questions that we received from the survey and trying to answer as many of them as possible. If you haven't been to this site is set up for you, for your project, for your property. So you can go to civicmike.com under communities there's San Leandro tab. Under that section, there's the FEMA maps, there's comparisons, there's questions that we receive from everyone's surveys. There's a map that shows who in the community has responded to the survey. So please visit this site. If you're not signed up to receive our informational newsletters and posts that we're sending out, on the sign-up sheet at the back of the room, you can include your email and just click. Check the box that says you'd like to be included in that so we can start sending you updates as well. Yes?
I noticed at Marina Seagate that some of us got the survey and some didn't. Why wasn't it just sent out to everyone who's in a flood zone?
It was sent out to everyone that was in the flood zone. We had she was asking why some individuals did not receive the survey, the postcard. The postcard was sent to the the parcels that were already in a flood zone to newly designated, right? And it also went to, so if you're not the property owner and you're renting, then you may not have received them. So we only had with the first round, we had 20 return postcards. So if they didn't get it,
I just thought it was unusual that some people got it and some people, I fortunately got it, but I know that some people I've talked to, and I think it's more haven't than had. So if a mass thing went out, so that's probably why you only got 80 responses too.
83 responses is extremely high for a survey that goes out on a postcard. So if you're thinking that a majority of property owners did not receive it, please reach out to any of those property owners and have them contact us so we can look into why they didn't receive it. Because we, like I said, we got a small number returned back, and then we researched those that were returned from the first postcard, and then from the second postcard, I am not quite sure how many we had, but we had returned, but we did address the ones that were returned from the first postcard. Yes.
A number of our homeowners live off-site and rent their units. So it would make a difference as did they go to the address in Marina Seagate, or did they go to the permanent address for the owner?
It went to the address on file at the county for the owner of the property. Right. So 1,053, 54. Actually, that's not true, because it was less than that. It was just over 1,000 because we removed city parcels, duplicate owners, duplicate mailing addresses.
You said you sent out 2 different mailings. Did you send out the same thing, both mailings, or did you send out something different?
This is the first postcard that we sent out here that had the survey information on the back. The second one gave the information about.
I received the second one, but never the first.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's good feedback because.
She lives next to me, and she's the exact opposite.
And so they went, unless you were one of the 25, they went to the exact same address both times with the same names. The only ones we changed were the return envelopes. So by a show of hands, who received both of the postcards? Okay. Okay. That is interesting to know, because we will be sending you another postcard about the next meeting if you decide to move forward with this project, and we'll need to address that. So someone that didn't receive both of them, can you please reach out to me at civicmike.com, or you can email me at dwood@civicmike.com and let me know so I can research your name and address. Yes.
Keith is now on our, sending all this information to our property management company. Just got that set up the other day.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Keith, or everyone.
Yes.
So the survey was sent out via postcard, right?
Yes.
Wasn't it also sent out via online
So no, it was sent out on the postcard to let you know about the Civic Mike website. And then once you went to the Civic Mike website and signed up for it, then we sent it out to you an email. So all of you, if you only received one postcard and now you've signed up, you're going to get a postcard and an email. So go to the website. Check the box back there that you want to receive notifications via email. That way, that will ensure that you're receiving it. For all of you that are getting all of the notifications, we're sorry, but we're trying to reach out to as many people as possible. And a room this size with the number of properties that we're talking about, this is a great turnout. I'm not just saying that. This is a really great turnout for a community informational meeting. So. The survey, the postcard came out to let you know that you could do the survey by walking into the city. You could do it by scanning the barcode that would take you to the Civic Mike page, or by typing in the address at the city's website that would take you to online. So all of the surveys, unless you walked into the city, were done online.
Okay, second question. So,
Yes.
83 did the survey via postcard, correct?
83 people found out about the survey somehow and went online and no.
So what I'm trying to find out is 83 responses. Is that online responses and postcard combined?
So the postcard was the only way that we notified the property owners about the survey. So unless your neighbor told you about it, 83 people found out about it through our postcard or word of mouth from the community.
Okay, and then 83 people responded to the survey online.
Actually, probably about 75. There were a handful of individuals that walked into the city and filled out the paper form.
The total number was 83.
Yes, correct.
What is the scope of this code affecting the community? How many households are we talking about?
1,055 parcels. Yes.
Okay, of those 1,055, those are the individuals that are going to be incurring a cost associated with this project? Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Correct.
They're spreading it over the whole,
No, only those individuals that receive benefit. Yes, correct.
Would that cost be evenly or distributed, or does it depend on anything else, like this house might pay more?
Depends on other things. And we have Sarah Maris here that's going to talk about that a little bit and explain that process for you after Austin goes through the construction project side. So hopefully we'll get all those questions answered, but if not, ask again. So hold that.
We were exempted, we never got the postcard, but I found out about it, I don't know how, I went on, I don't know how I found out, with the email, and I went in and got the information, but couldn't take the survey because we're part of Seagate, but we're exempted down 4 units, and I don't know why. That's very odd.
That's because of FEMA's designation. So if you are not on that map right there of a special flood hazard area, FEMA.
Been in a flood, they put us in 3 years or 4 years ago.
Right, they did not change your flood zoning because of the coastal study. So this is for all those that were changed because of the coastal study, because those are the ones that once this levee is constructed can be removed or lowered risk. So your parcel, I'm not an expert on this portion of it, but your parcel, once this levee is formed, may not receive a lower risk designation from FEMA. If you were not included in you were not included in that map right there.
Which makes no sense because we're right on the water. We are
Right.
there. And they built the levee, they raised the levee outside our door.
She won't get charged. She won't be included in the district. You're right. So you will not be included in the district. You will not benefit from the district. And that's why I say I can't speak to that, because these were FEMA studies that I wish I understood better, but I don't. Yes.
I just want to comment on this. I'm with Marina Gardens, and we have 87 units, of which about 81, I believe, 80 or 81 were included in the FEMA maps, and about 5 or 6, maybe 7 that are on Doolittle Drive were not. So then there's another example of the same thing.
Right. Yes, it is somewhat baffling to us as well.
It gets more complicated if you're part of an HOA, it's not a single-family home, so if the rest of the complex is in it and we're not,
That's
and you're
true,
required to
because you
get
have
umbrella
common
insurance.
property. So it's a little more complicated being in a townhouse community where you have some common property. So it may impact you directly, or it might be part of your HOA dues. So there's a lot of factors, and to try to go into each individual one will be too challenging to do that today. So this is kind of to give us a big picture sense of the whole thing, and then we'll have to, if there's some unique things, we can dig into it at another time.
Yes.
Aurora Homeowners Association, the same
You got,
situation. 24 have now been put into the flood zone, 18 sit outside of it. So, you're not alone.
Right. Right.
Can you repeat the question and repeat Lance each time so that the people
Yes. Yes. I will walk around with the mic as soon as I am done with this portion. Maybe I can enlist Sarah here. So it's not turned on there. So if anyone else has any more questions. So once again, go to this website. If you haven't been there, sign up so you can get informational updates. If you're not within the designated area, you can still sign up. You can still receive the information and come to the meetings and ask questions. Okay, so the purpose of this meeting is to give you an overview of the project, talk to you about the funding of this project, answer your questions. That's the biggest point of this meeting. So we discussed some questions earlier. I said, please, even if you think it's been asked and you're not sure, ask it again. If after the meeting you come up with a question that wasn't answered here, email us and let us know so we can put the answer. We can work with the city to get the answers and put them out on the website for all of you. Yes.
So just to be clear, no decisions are going to be made tonight.
Excuse me. No, correct. The city is getting you as much information as possible so then we can talk about next steps. So at the end of this meeting, after we've done the 2 presentations, we answer questions, then we'll talk about next steps from there. And none of those are ultimate even at that point. Yes.
So if it is decided to proceed with a parcel tax, when would it go on the ballot?
I don't think that we're looking at a parcel tax. We're looking at an assessment.
Would this be voted on?
It would go through a ballot proceeding.
Go on the ballot?
It would go through a ballot proceeding. It would not be voted on the ballot. So it's a little bit different process. And Sarah's going to talk about that, and she'll give you some timing and explain. It's a different process than a special tax. So, okay. So, out of the individuals who took the survey, we had 94% that are likely to support this project, which is really good. It means that a lot of you are interested in the project and a lot of you are in support of that as of now. The 6% there that are unlikely, we really want to hear from you because everyone in this room wants to know why you're unlikely to support it. If it's because you don't pay flood insurance or you only pay $100, those are good questions and information to get out there because the people who are supporting it may change their mind or vice versa. Yes.
I realize you don't have to have flood insurance if you don't have a mortgage per se, but try to sell the house.
Correct. That's why I was mentioning earlier, the city's trying to get you in a good position to not, flood insurance is great to cover you in the event of a flood, but let's prevent that from happening. Marketability. If there's a flood, your neighborhood livability. Who had flood insurance and which one of your neighbors? How long is it going to take them to rebuild? So all those questions are things that you want to consider when we're going through this process. Yes.
Why aren't all residents of the City of San Leandro asked to share in the cost of the levee?
Because all residents will not benefit from the construction of the levee. So only the parcels that were designated in a special flood hazard area, in that map right there on the wall in red, those are the only parcels that will benefit from this levee being built. There is some general benefit, but your homes will change their flood zone designation. Yes.
Yeah, I take a little, well, I have a different opinion on that.
Okay.
I was on the city council in '07, and I served for 10 years. And I can remember they tried to put us in the flood zone back then, and when Tony Santos was mayor and I was a council member from this area, we fought it vociferously, and it didn't end up in the flood zone. I believe that, yes, we do need to construct a levee, but yes, the city should pay for it because everyone in the city is benefiting from this. We're putting in millions of dollars in that marina down there, and we're going to have a hotel with a conference center, restaurants, housing, you name it. How do you get to the marina? The low point is Neptune and Marina. How are people going to get there? And by the way, the other entrance is Fairway, which Seagate is also in the flood zone. But I believe everybody in the city of San Leandro is benefiting from putting in the levee. And I've seen this city over the 10 years when I was on the city council spend millions and millions of dollars on projects that didn't necessarily benefit everybody in the city of San Leandro. That's why I'm opposed to the assessment district, which, by the way, if you don't send in your vote, it's counted as a yes vote, and you will be penalized anyway. I think it's wrong. If I was still on the city council, I'd be arguing vociferously for this city to be paying for something that's going to benefit the marina, which everybody goes to and everybody in San Leandro uses. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. The benefit will be determined for your parcels in the area, and you know that's a valid point, and thank you for speaking up. You're one of the 6%. Okay, okay.
Everybody in the whole city benefits, not just me, not just him, everybody. There should say, okay, if you can't help, you should go down to the marina and enjoy it.
I just want to add, I just want to provide a little bit of insight on that with the assessment, one of the things that Sarah will be looking at is the general benefit that's received by the community. And that portion of the assessment will not be funded by your payments, your assessments. So Sarah will talk in more detail about that, but that is a consideration in this process. We understand, now it's not 100% benefit to the entire community because you individually will recognize a change in your flood designation, but the general benefit portion will be removed from the assessment and covered by the city. So that's something that Sarah will go over in her presentation, right? Or I'm sorry, Austin's going to speak about the proposed project, and then Sarah will talk about the project funding. But good points, and after they're done or throughout their process, feel free to ask more questions.
And just to point out that I was not part of the 6% because I wanted the levee built. I just want the city to pay.
Oh, okay. That question was misleading. Yes. Okay. All right. That's very true. Yes.
Who benefits and who doesn't benefit.
That will be done by an assessment engineer, and Sarah will talk about that.
Is the county adding any funding?
Engineer.
The county, I do not believe there are any county parcels, and I do not think that they're providing any funding for this project, no.
If I heard you correctly, Alameda County recommended that we get this levee constructed, is that correct?
Yes, that's how it initiated.
Okay. And so since Alameda County said that we should get the levee constructed, why aren't they providing any funding for it? When initially, if I heard you correctly, that they were going to fund the project.
So So they funded the project along the Estadillo Canal in its entirety. So raising the levee on the north side, and now they're about to lower the levee on the south side. That's within their ability to make improvements, and the county has done that. Without that project, this project would not make a difference. So that was probably several $1 million just to raise it, and they still have some work to do. They're spending a pretty good chunk of change for the area.
Okay, second thing, so if the county had not told San Leandro to construct a levee, would San Leandro propose constructing a levee, or would it just been left out to dry?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Was constructing the levee on any agenda during city council meetings or your internal meetings at all?
No.
Okay. So the only reason that we're constructing a levee and we're having this meeting is because the county said that we needed to do it.
No, what happened is the firm maps changed,
Okay?
and that started the process. The county just happened to be ahead of us because they do flood control.
Understood. Okay. I got you.
And just to note that the map that's right there next to the sign-in sheet shows both levies. So the levy at the top portion is the levy that we're looking to fund through an assessment. The levy at the bottom portion is the levy that we're discussing the county has paid for.
If the Alameda County paid for the first project, why didn't they just go ahead and pay for the second and make everybody happy here?
Because they said it's not within their jurisdiction, and they can't do anything about it, and that's why they told the city, it's under your control, you should consider doing something about it. They said that 3 times already.
All right, then
So
pay.
it's not part of the county.
Okay, pay $5,000.
Yes. We have someone here asking what happened to the grant that was supposed to be for this project. I know that the city pursued grant funding but was not able to obtain any grant funding for this project. Yes.
Couple of things. Fixing the repairing or getting new floodgates, is that not part of the levee project that will be paid for by the county?
Why don't we have their presentation so we can hear?
I
Is
do
that
not
part
know
of
the
it?
answer to that, but Austin may be answering some form of that in
Okay.
his presentation. So
And
let-
will we be addressing FEMA getting us, really following through and taking us out of the flood zone?
Yes.
I mean, do we have assurances from them that that will happen?
yes.
Because when I read some of the
Not
materials.
you, because you're not in the special.
I'm in a flood zone, but I'm not, it makes no sense.
But
That
for
makes no
everyone
sense
else.
either. But because they said there would still be a 1% chance of flooding, even with these levees built, would that still be giving us enough assurance that they're going to remove us from the flood zone, or could they come back after it's built and say, no, you're still in the flood zone?
That is something that Austin will cover in his presentation.
Okay,
The city
great,
will make
thank
sure that that's a portion of this project. Yes. Yes.
So we're simply accepting the fact that FEMA says we're not in a flood zone when I've lived here 50 years and it hasn't been a flood zone before? Is that what we're simply doing? We're telling us to build a levee, we're going to build a levee.
So you're telling me I also live in a flood zone, and a 100-year flood zone, and I did at my last home as well. And there are ways around it, but I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford the studies to reevaluate my parcel individually, to reevaluate my neighborhood. We tried to raise money. It just the cost of doing that. So yes, we in the city is taking FEMA study.
How does the worst case scenario from FEMA go? There's a tsunami and water's coming from the Golden Gate Bridge 15 miles away and swamp us down?
I don't think that's how they came up with their designations, but we do have on the Civic Mike website, there are links under the San Leandro, under the data center section. There are links to read the FEMA study, to look at the items that they evaluated. And a lot of that information you'll be able to find there.
No, they put so much money out for all the fires and everything, they need money.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to move on to the construction project and maybe get some of these
How about we
other
let them
questions.
go on with the presentation and ask questions afterwards?
Perfect. Okay, great. All right, Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, just as Daniel said, if you live within this area, you are in the flood zone. And like she said, it's designated special storm hazard area. Okay, thank you, got it. So talking about we're just talking about the two areas that will be improved to get us out of the flood zone. And like Keith and Daniel said earlier, this is the area we're talking about here for this assessment district. And that's the area of Neptune, right at Neptune and Monarch Bay. And the area that the county is working on or work on is that area right at the south end of Monarch Bay. Excuse me. Yeah, Doolittle Drive to that would be the SDO canal. And this is the plan we've developed for improving the design for the raising the levee. And I'll have John, who is my project manager for this project, take it up from here.
Thank you. And just to answer a previous question, the county is doing levee work, and they're also upgrading the floodgates at the entrance to the bay. That's all part of one project, one location on Estudillo Canal. So this is our design for the levee. It's an earthen levee. It's approximately little over 300 feet in length. Approximately 300, a little over 300 feet in length. Most of it is earthen levee, but on the western end, this is a concrete wall. And the reason for that is there are some Alameda County drain lines that go through here, and they have floodgates there, and the county needs a flat area to access those gates. So an earthen levee would not work there. So this is a picture of the existing condition. The area, 300 feet, it spans across 5 properties. One is owned by the city. One of the other 4 properties has a home built on it, and the other 3 are vacant. So this is what it looks like now. There's no development on this view. This is the existing levee or mound. This is not certified. And this is a photo simulation of what the earthen levee will look like once it's constructed. Now it's approximately 1.5 to 2 feet higher than the existing. That's how much increase in height is needed. So this is a cross section of the levee. This is the new levee, and I'll go to the next slide. So, oops, one too many. So this area is the colored area is the existing levee. So we can't just build on top of that to increase the height. This material needs to be removed, taken out. A keyway cut, this keyway is 2.5 feet deep. Then this is replaced with engineered fill, which is compacted and tested. And then you can see the height is only, 1.5 feet, 2 feet higher than existing, but the slope of the levee extends out onto the property. And the cost for the whole project, for construction, for design, for permitting, everything we estimate at close to $2 million.
I have a question. 2 million as of today?
Yes. So the part of the process is toward the end of design, the design is submitted, the design is submitted to FEMA with a conditional letter of a map revision. So FEMA reviews the design. We also need regulatory permits. We're in the bay water, so BCDC is involved and some other agencies. We need to get all the permitting. And then also we need to figure out the construction funding. Once those 3 components are in place, we can then proceed with construction. After the levee is built, there's a confirmation process to ensure the construction meets the design standards, and then a final letter of map revision is sent to FEMA. Once that's all approved, then the final map revision goes into effect.
We received an engineer's estimate, and it's considerably different than what you just showed in 2 levels. First of all, the design process, or the construction process has gone up a lot over what the original engineer's estimate was. And second of all, on this estimate sheet, it shows there's an already existing funding of $500,000 for design. Did that disappear?
No, that's not disappeared. That was money.
Include that $500,000?
No, that's not shown there. The $2 million is just the total costs of the full project.
Yeah, but we're worried about what we have to pay for.
We'll get there for that.
That will come in the later part of the presentation.
I'll be waiting. Okay.
So here is an outline of the schedule. So on the top line, this line is design. Concurrently, we'll have the review by FEMA and the conditional letter of map revision. And also we'll be processing the regulatory permits and determining the funding. So once those 3 components are in place, which could be February, March of next year, the project will be advertised. Then the assessment district will be established and formalized, and we'll be awarding for construction. So typically working in and near the bay water, construction is limited to the months of November through February because of endangered species around there. So construction is shown here between the months of November and January of 2020, 2021.
So this is assuming the project's going to be passed, and this is for the total construction, and there isn't additional years that's going to take, which is a short time period?
The actual construction period is very short. It's about 2 months, but this is a layout of the whole procedure. So after construction, there's review by FEMA to make sure the construction met the standards. And then once that is all good, then the final map revision will go into effect. And that could be 6 months after construction. So you're looking at the middle of 2021, the summer of 2021. So that's kind of an outline of schedule, and that would be on the best case, that would be the soonest. If there were delays, then construction may have to wait until November of the following year.
I have a question. Where does the multi-million-dollar development Gold Coast come into this? They certainly are going to be funding and developing this whole area. Are they not going to pony up money?
I don't have the answer to that myself.
The question is, how much is Gold Coast going to be? Cal Coast going to be funding of this project?
Well, let me just say, and that's part of the assessment district process, but every property that you see on that map, regardless of who owns it, participates in it. And so it gets distributed based on a distribution, and Sarah's going to talk a little bit more about that. So there's a lot of details, unfortunately. It's just not as simple as 1, 2, 3. So, was it John?
So are you saying the businesses are going to contribute?
Oh, yes. Everybody that, if their property is on that map, is involved. They may not be in this room, but if they're on that map, they're involved.
How are you going to consider the assessment value of each particular property? Because some are going to be income-generating properties.
That is part of the process. Yes, that is part of the process. That's why they call it assessment district engineering. It's not just divide by 1,000.
Is all of this information on that website that you had referenced?
If it's not, it'll be added, but there is, I mean, you can read pages and pages about assessment district formation. It's not, you know, an hour and a half type of discussion.
I'd like to see a summary to start with here.
There is some good summaries, and Sarah will definitely talk about that. So we can keep on moving.
Hey, John, just for clarification on your previous slide, could you just talk about what a conditional letter of map revision is, that once FEMA reviews it, if we do what they say? Can you go over that so there's some clarity?
Right, so FEMA will look at the final design, and they will look at other components, other documents, and they will essentially condition saying, if you build it as you say, then the map can be revised and the flood zone will be changed. And then the final, after construction, after verification that it was built to those standards, then the final letter of map revision will be adopted and a map revision will follow.
On the design, what's the total height that it will be then when you rebuild the levee? You're adding about 1.5 feet. I don't know what it is, the height now, so how high will it be overall?
Well, it'll be about 1.5 feet higher than existing.
Yeah, I don't know what is the existing height now, so.
The existing height is 11 feet above is
Wait, 11 feet above what? Sea level?
sea level.
So it'll be 12.5 feet approximately.
14.2. Yeah, it's 11 plus. And the FEMA flood map shows that I believe your area is about 10 feet in elevation. So this levee will be 4 feet higher.
One other question, when they're doing the levee on the Estadio Canal and the floodgates, is that going to be part of this project timeline that's going to be done in 2020 also?
No, that's the county's project, and they have their own schedule. These two projects are connected and they provide the same benefit, but apart from that, they're totally separated.
I'm coming out of left field with this question, but my family was the first to move into Marina Fair in September 1961. What has changed that we never heard about a levee till now?
Well, that's actually a pretty good question, and we probably should have FEMA come out and talk about that, because it's a pretty detailed analysis that they did. And essentially, you know, as we go along, we get better, you know, people just get better at what they do. And in terms of predicting, you know, where ocean levels are and rainfall and just a lot of variables. And so that's what's happened. People just get better at it.
Climate change.
So when we get to November 2020, the construction impacts the project. We don't expect any road closures. The duration of construction we expect to be about 2 months only. Work hours are 7 a.m. till 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. There will be some noise. Dust will be controlled by water, and there might be some small local traffic delays in the vicinity of the project, Neptune Drive and Marina Boulevard, when equipment is moving on those streets. A question in the back?
I have a question. It's my understanding that in order for us to not be in the flood control, you have to fix the gates. You have to lower the south side of the levee on the canal, and you also have to do the Neptune. You have to have all these things done together for us to no longer, as associated, pay $192,000 a year, plus then potentially have an assessment. And if all that comes together, will we no longer ever have to pay flood insurance? Because that's would be my investment, is putting the money for the assessment so that everything's remediated, so that we are no longer in a flood control zone or flood.
Wrong slide again. The flood area that exists right now, to take that area out of the flood zone, it needs this project, which Alameda County Flood Control is moving ahead with. It's fully funded. They're doing that work, and the floodgates. And then the second component is this Neptune Drive levee. So this project plus this one both need to be completed for this area to be taken out of the flood zone.
Well, I can't say that, but there'll be a conditional letter of map revision. And then with that, your insurance agencies can make a decision as to, if, you know, based on those approvals, what a new insurance rate would be. So you'll be able to get that information once we have that conditional letter of map revision.
So even if you pay for this, then through an assessment, you're still gonna have to pay for.
No, you'll be able to test it beforehand, right? So when we do the conditional letter of map revision, you'll be able to take that information to we'll have a new designation, a preliminary designation of what your property will be. You can take that to your insurance agent, and they can tell you one way or the other what they'll charge.
Is this before the construction is done
Yes.
or after construction?
Yes, before.
Keith, it's the banks that are pushing it, not the insurance agents. It's the banks.
Question here?
That, why area, that's the north side of that canal, correct?
Yes.
And that's the one that's going to be raised.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Raised how much?
I don't have that information.
But it's been approved by FEMA, and, you know, that part is done. So,
The north levee will be raised. The south levee will be lowered.
yeah, it's already done, actually.
They're gonna put one. For the existing, what it is right now, there's going to be another layer added to the top of that, correct?
Okay, well, they've already done that work on the north side. If they think they need to add more of that, I haven't heard that from the county directly, but they'll do whatever it needs to be done to make sure that their facilities will allow us to change the flood.
I have a question. It's about the cost of the residents. Now, you correct me here. We're building this piece so we can get the water out of San Leandro so it doesn't flood our area in the flood zone, right? And this is the water that's being collected from all of San Leandro through all the different storm drains and stuff? Is that where we're collecting all this water from?
No.
Because if it's all the rainwater coming from the city of San Leandro, then it should be shared by everybody, not just the people in the flood zone.
It's mainly a function of the higher tides.
Just to clarify, if those two items are done, does that entire flood zone disappear?
No, I already said that.
Yes.
Some parcels still going to remain?
No, the whole area currently is in, and the whole area will be out.
Alameda County is on the southern one here, and the city of San Leandro then is on the.
Correct.
Do you know what the timeline for the county is then, for the project, you know?
They have started up, the north part,
I know,
they've
that's
done.
done, live on it, yeah.
So the south part, I have to double check, but I think they're going for this next construction season. So October is, I think what they've told us that they're gonna start construction. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Then you interrupt somebody else.
Keith, I talked to the engineer
Yes.
in charge of the project, and you pointed out correctly, they are done with the levee on the north side. The south side, not yet. And they are not repairing the floodgates, they're rebuilding them.
Yes.
That's the bulk of their project.
Yes.
However, just like you said for Neptune, they can't build year-round.
Correct.
There's environmental issues that they've been told, you've got permission to do this, we can only do it for like 4 or 5 months out of the year. So they're constrained by doing that. They also are in the process now of ordering specialized gates and all of that stuff. And they're hoping to get started next year. And they've been planning this for years though. FEMA just happened to come along, is what they've said. So they've been building this into their sewer rates for years.
Yeah.
Along there. So it was nice finally being able to talk to somebody there that could get you some straight answers.
Yeah.
But it looks like things are moving.
They're moving forward, yes.
Can I ask a question about FEMA and being at their mercy? If the assessment is voted on and we all agree to pay whatever portion we would be obligated to pay, if for whatever reason FEMA deems this project not to be to their satisfaction, we would then be reassessed potentially, correct? With additional monies to be paid.
In other words, we currently have a levee, we're lifting it up by a 1.5 foot. Right now, that's gonna make it sufficient. In the next 2-3 years, it might again become insufficient. We're gonna have to do another levee project.
We don't trust FEMA.
Well, just to add to that, I think we said earlier that there's conditional letter of map revision. And what that means is before we even set out to complete the plans and put it out for bid, we have to get concurrence from FEMA. That
Correct.
before we do
How
this.
long will this concurrence last? Will it last a year, 2 years? Will they change their mind in 3 years?
That is, obviously, I don't have the answer to that. If I did have the answer to that, I'd probably have a different job. So, you know as well as I know.
Keith, how often does FEMA update their maps?
Probably, I mean, it's a big project to update the map, right? So I think they had the last map in place for 15 years or so.
No.
It was shorter than that?
We're part of this, we're in the flood zone, but we're not part of this special assessment thing.
2009.
Because, yeah, they just moved us in.
They just moved us.
So what is that, 8 to 9 years? So it's a function of how much data they collect and what's going on in terms of their research.
I see the bridge is also included in this, right?
Yes, we're repairing the bridge in conjunction with the county because since they're doing the work in the channel and there's a lot, it's pretty extensive work because they have to control the flow. It's an ideal opportune time to repair the embankments underneath the bridge.
how much does this extended levee at 14 feet above sea level, how far above the FEMA floodplain elevation is that? Is it a foot above? Does it give us margin of error for a higher potential higher floodplain in the future? Or does it just barely exceed the floodplain elevation?
Well, that's actually a pretty good question. And right now it's designed to meet the current needs. Now, because as you go to higher heights, sounds like Caltrans. If you go to higher heights, the areas all move, right? You have to, you know, it's like anything. You just can't fix one place, and then, if you raise it, it could be other locations along the way.
But if we're fixing it now, we might as well future-proof it. Even, and so we will not have to touch it again in the future.
Can I help you out a little bit on this? I actually have studied the whole entire FEMA report. It's about 250 pages. John and I have been working on this together. It's how we got our insurance corrected. What this is about is called a 100-year and a 300-year flood event. It's not about sea level, it's about a flood event. And a flood event is an exceptional accumulation of water that happens theoretically one year out of 100 or 1 year out of 300. Of course, I've been in an experience where all of them have happened in 1 year. Doesn't guarantee that. What this is at a 300-year flood event level, this rise, as they calculate, will prevent that from breaching and affecting the properties for a 300-year flood event. That affects your insurance rate because it's a classification. I think it's X, John, that we ended up with? AE. Okay, AE. And that is what your finance person wants in order for you to get a loan. Without it, you ain't getting a loan. Okay, so this brings down the cost of your flood insurance. The study covers everything from the toll booths all the way around the entire bay. And believe it or not, we're in better shape than most. The entire, there's whole sections of the bay area that can't be helped. This only protects for approximately a 10-year period for a 300-year flood event. After that, we don't know because it's global warming, and we don't know how fast the sea levels are rising. So that's the gamble, but none of us know. And that's what we went through. Bud was there on that. And we managed to at least get our classification locked in for a period of time. If we don't get this, our classification goes up, our insurance goes up. That's about it.
And it'll be hard to sell out.
Absolutely, because you can't get funding.
Can you speak a little bit about locking-in classification? How does that work?
About what?
Locking-in classification. How does that work? How does that
The
work?
what?
When you lock in classification, so for a period of time, of 10 years.
I don't remember how long ours locked in. Do you remember how long we got it locked in for?
We're permanently locked in because we got it.
Yeah, before the next assessment.
The old, which was
That's right.
November. If we waited till December, our rates were going to go up, what, by 2.5 times? Almost 2.5 times.
We made it by less than a month.
So we got it in by less than a month. And a lot of that has to do with our insurance broker, who had been on top of this much early on. I think, Keith, you've met him. And he knew this was coming. He just didn't know when it was coming, right, Pete? And
We're locked into the next assessment, which is approximately 10 years out. But, we're also gambling that we don't have a 100-year or 300-year flood event, because if you do, that's going to knock it all down, folks.
And at the behest of our insurance broker, we also had, before we even knew what it was, once FEMA's flood stuff was known that they were remapping, we were certified ourselves. We hired an independent company to check our elevations. So once it hit, we didn't have to wait to have that done because you couldn't get insurance unless you were certified. So, yes, we were ahead of it.
Your big risks are if you try to refinance or to sell your home, this is going to be a big issue for you. And the second thing is, if it actually happens, it's even a bigger issue because then you're in a non-recovery mode. So it's a roll of the dice, but guess what? We're all rolling the dice together because the fix applies to all of us.
Let me ask you a question about the elevation. We're going at the lowest possible spot on the map where it's circled in yellow, correct?
It's been a few months that I've seen it. That is one of the lowest spots, and they knew that's a breaching point, so they want to fix that. It's correct.
So where is the next reaching point?
You're seing that oval down there?
Point to why, okay.
That's what we're here talking about. The other is the gates, and John said they found out finally that they're doing something about the gates. So there are 3 places where we have to fix it. One is the top circle, one are the gates that are being done, but the third part is this levee increase, and it's...
But that's already been done though, on one side.
Yes.
And then the other side, they're just gonna lower it.
That's correct.
Okay, so what I'm asking is, what's the next lowest level that might breach? We're raising it only to 14 feet. Okay, what's the next level, 15 feet? Where is that?
I don't have that information.
We were not provided something like that.
We're going to 14 feet here. The land is actually lower to the north, but 14 feet is needed here because of wave action coming off the bay. So we're already going higher.
Yeah, we haven't done the studies, the incremental studies. You can spend hundreds of thousands on studies, but we haven't done that.
But to the north of us is gonna be Oakland, or is it San Leandro?
Oh, that's still in San Leandro, what he was pointing to. But we haven't done those additional studies, and that's what it would require.
That's what I'm saying. So if we go up to 14 feet and Oakland is 13 feet, it's gonna come around the backside.
Oh, no. We're a good ways from Oakland. If this area wouldn't be impacted by Oakland, the border is quite a ways north. So you have to get all the way up to the golf course before you get to Oakland. And then that wouldn't impact this area.
Didn't you already do Davis Street mitigation?
We did a little repair at Davis Street. At the end of Davis Street, there's a little channel that we've raised an edge. So
what elevation?
It's around 13 to 14, somewhere around there. It's pretty close to the same elevation.
We'll take just 2 more questions, then I need to pass this on to Sarah.
I have the microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How many homes are going to be in the new development? How many are planned?
I believe there are 176 single-family townhouse units, and then there are a 200-unit condominium.
And will the developer be paying then for all of those?
Well, it depends on how they're impacted. If they're impacted in this area, yes, they're involved with the process.
So they'll be part of the assessment calculation then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Another area is in different areas. Like, see, for example, the apartment complex is here. It's not actually in a flood district. The flood zone.
How are they going to get to their house when all the others?
That's the general benefit, and that's a part of the assessment district.
We're fixing the bridge.
Okay, talking about dollars, we really haven't even given us an estimated cost of the average household as far as how much it's going to cost. Wait. That's part one of the question. And if we are having all these developers come in and they want to build here, why don't we just put it as a stipulation that they pay for this? No, this is not a joke.
They're paying their fair share.
$2 million is a drop in the bucket to them, especially the Marriott building a hotel, wouldn't you think?
I need to hand this over to Sarah.
Goodwill.
Let's see how much it's gonna cost. Tell us that.
Let's let Sarah talk.
Who wants to know how much this is going to cost you? All right. Let me get my presentation up. Bear with me one moment.
And there's no impact for us then.
I have a question. And it's about what we were just talking about.
Yeah, one last question. Okay, since we have been reading for years now about the 13-foot rise of the ocean, why is that not included in your projection and planning to allow for that?
Well, it's pretty interesting, and if you read through that funding process?
So I know this is the bottom line question everyone wants to know, right? Is how much is this going to cost me? So I'm going to talk a little bit about context for an assessment district, how an assessment district works, how it's established. So I want you to know, Danielle mentioned there is no decision being made here tonight. Okay, this is a process that we will go through with you. And it starts way back with Proposition 13. Did anyone vote on Proposition 13? And it also interplays with Proposition 218. Does anyone remember Proposition 218? 1996. Okay. And then we throw it back because what we're working with is called a 1913 Act Assessment District. I don't think any of you voted on anything related to the 1913 Act, right? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about Proposition 13. So in terms of funding, it used to be, prior to 1978 when this was approved, that the city could just raise their tax rate, okay? Proposition 13 is approved by voters. That's no longer allowed. The city cannot just go raise their own money to do the projects that they need or want to do. The value of your home that you pay taxes on is limited to a 2% increase on an annual basis, and you're only reassessed when property changes hands. So if you sell your property, or if there's a major remodel, major addition, something like that, you would have your value reassessed. And the tax rate was limited to 1% for ad valorem taxes. So as a result of this, the city has limited options in terms of raising money. So there are, like I mentioned, the 1913 Act assessment. There are several other laws that provide for other mechanisms for local agencies to raise money, aside from general property taxes. So we'll talk about Proposition 218 just a little bit. What we're looking at here is called an assessment district. Someone else used the term parcel tax earlier, and though they sound like they might be the same thing, legally they are very different. So I'm going to keep using the word assessment for this funding mechanism because it is not a tax. Proposition 218 was approved by voters in 1996, and that really laid down very strict rules on how benefit assessments work. So we've had the 1913 Act, obviously, for quite a while. And now Proposition 218 comes along and tells us, we need you to be very careful about how assessment districts are formed. We need you to follow certain procedures to make sure folks are receiving the notice that an assessment is being proposed. We need you to follow very strict engineering guidelines and make sure that it is an engineer who is determining the benefit to property, as well as segregating both the special and general benefit. Proposition 218 also tells us that government-owned property is not exempt. In many cases, most cases, government agencies do not pay taxes. However, they pay assessments. Okay, this applies to every government agency. There are no wholesale exemptions for any type of property. The only exemption is that you do not benefit from the improvements being made. Okay. The 1913 Act Assessment District requires that we prepare an engineer's report. The engineer's report will be very detailed to show the project costs, to show both the general and special benefit. We've talked about that a little bit. General benefit, that concept is really the fact that we recognize that it is not just your property on that map that would benefit. This is an area that folks will have to travel through to get to other parts of town. Okay, so we will recognize that in the analysis. And the special benefit will be the special benefit will be identified as well as quantified. So when we look at project costs of roughly $2 million, we'll take a look to determine how that gets spread to the property in the district. Okay, so that's the analysis that the engineer does. In order to approve the assessment district, we prepare the engineer's report and have a resolution of intention go before City Council. At that point, City Council would call for, if they approve the assessment and intention to form, they would call for a protest ballot proceeding. Okay, this is not a vote of registered voters. This is a ballot protest proceeding where property owners are mailed a ballot, and they would have the opportunity to protest or cast a ballot in favor of the assessment. The assessment assigned to each property is the weight of your vote. So properties that pay more have more say in terms of the process. So, yes. Property owners, the question is that I mentioned property owners, and is it property owners within the special district? It is only those property owners who are identified as receiving special benefit and paying the assessment cast ballots. Say that part again?
Not the whole city of San Leandro.
Correct, not the whole city of San Leandro. Those folks aren't paying, they don't get a say. It is only folks. They're not paying the special benefit. It is only properties that specially benefit that pay the assessment. Okay? Other money contributes to the project by way of general benefit and the city contribution. However, the assessment is only paid for by properties that specially benefit. Okay?
What percentages of yes votes will pass the assessment?
It's a protest proceeding, so as long as there is not a majority protest, then the assessment would move forward.
What does it mean then?
What was the question?
Like, is it 60% yes?
No, it's if you do not have more than 50% protest, then you move forward and the assessment is approved. Yes, sir.
The former councilman spoke of a protest vote, and if people didn't vote at all, then it's counted as a yes. Can you confirm that?
So the protest proceeding in the balloting is based on ballots returned. So it's not that it counts as a yes, because if you say in a crazy scenario, you only had one ballot from one property owner returned and it was in protest, you have a majority protest.
So it's not from the total amount.
So if you want the assessment, send your ballot in, because you would need to show approval or show that you're in favor to outweigh anyone who is protesting. Does that make sense?
It does. It's just curious to me that we started off with Ms. Wood calling 85 or 90 people signing this thing, and there's over 1,000, between 1,000 and 1,100 people that it was sent to, and she calls that a surprisingly good turnout. I don't know why.
For a survey, that is excellent turnout for a survey. I would expect higher response for a ballot proceeding, but that's something that's mailed to you. It's a piece of paper. You check a box and you mail it back in, as opposed to having to go online. I mean, we would typically see higher, but I don't usually see, there has been a rare instance where I see like 80-85% return, and that is extremely rare. I would say we're more often closer to 40% returned ballots. Yeah, on a protest. But I mean, look at the number of people who vote in regular elections. I mean, you just don't get everyone engaged. So, yes, ma'am.
My concern is there's not 1,055 people here
well, I says, well, I don't be assessed. They're gonna be able to get the information without having to go on the internet. I mean, something that's gonna come out and explain why it's being done, the pros and cons, because, as I say, it's not 1,055 homes.
There will be more public outreach. There will absolutely be more public outreach, so additional information will be going out. When you get the package that has your ballot in it, it will also include a notice. And that notice will have lots of information for you, telling you when your assessment ballot is due, what the project is, what your portion of the project is compared to the total cost. So that document itself, even if that ballot is the very first thing you see, that document will have a lot of information in it. And it'll be mailed at least 45 days prior to the public hearing, so that should allow some sufficient time for folks to do a little bit of research if that happens to be the first information that they are seeing about the project and the cost.
The vote will occur at this hearing, or we'll do the vote by mail?
The ballot tabulation will be done after the public hearing at the council meeting. So it'll be at a council meeting that will all occur. Okay.
Can we get to the cost?
So we have done some preliminary assessment calculations, and I can't stress this enough that these are preliminary numbers. We are looking at lots of factors that go into the district and the assessment engineering. We are, checking cost estimates and so forth. If this is a capital project and money needs to be borrowed, we can't guarantee today what an interest rate might be for funds borrowed in, 9 months. So just to say, these are preliminary numbers. The assessment engineering is looking at 2 main factors to determine the amount each property pays, and those 2 factors are lot size and building square footage. And again, I mentioned all benefiting property is assessed. So when you'll see these numbers, you'll see some of the property up here, and a good portion of this project is publicly owned property. So not only is the city paying the general benefit contribution, but they then are also paying their share of the special benefit. So, detached single-family residential. The first 2 numbers you see, $110 to $500. This is based on the size of your property. If you have a very small parcel and a very small structure, you're going to be at the lower end of that range. Okay? This is the estimated annual assessment.
How many annuals?
Typically, bonds are issued with a 30-year term. Okay? If you have a larger lot and a larger home, you're going to be at the higher end of that spectrum. There are not very many parcels within the district that are at that higher end, so our average comes out to $150 annually. This is based on $2 million of project costs, which is what was in the slide earlier.
Well, that was an older estimate. Did the $500,000 disappear? No, the city has basically put in some initial funding to go through the design phase. So they put in $500,000 at this point.
Is that out of the $2 million?
No, that's part of the $2 million.
In other words, they loaned us the money.
Yes.
Okay, they didn't give us the money.
Correct.
Now, the second thing is you have an engineer's estimate in here that went up a great deal.
Yes.
And having done engineering before, I'm a little nervous about that. How did it go up so much? Because it went up probably about 40 to 50%.
Well, the design changed. We thought we could do a different type of wall, and we couldn't because of the soils. So at first we didn't have that information. Now we have additional information. The design gets better. The costs get more refined.
Is your contingency still 20%?
I don't recall, but it is still pretty high.
No, it's down?
Yeah, it's probably down a little bit.
Is $2 million the new number, or is it the old number?
It's the current estimate that we have right now for the project costs.
is the contingency against construction only?
I believe it kind of, how do you have it calculated?
Yeah, construction only. And who manages the contingency? Sorry, I'm a project manager, I gotta know this.
Well, I mean, contingency is based on risk,
Of course.
right?
Who
so-
manages it?
Well, we do. The city right now is,
So, yeah, but it's our money.
it's always the residents' money.
Right. So that's why I'm asking these questions.
That's our whole point, is to make sure we're doing the best job for the residents.
These are mechanical questions. The price went up quite a bit.
Yes.
I understand why. You say it was a design problem. Right.
Yes,
The contingency went down.
because we've gone further into the design process.
Is there a chance it'll go down more?
Usually, yes. As you go closer and closer to the actual construction time, you have a better idea on the cost of construction. I mean, right now, we're predicting cost of construction a year out.
Well, yeah, of course. That's what you do.
So that's why you have a larger contingency. As you get closer, the number gets tighter.
So this number is based on $2 million TIC,
TIC,
total installed cost.
yes.
Okay, with a 15% contingency.
Currently, yes.
Yeah, you can't believe how happy I am. Thank you.
For those of you in attached single-family residential property, your numbers look a little different. Again, it's primarily based on size, so these are some sample calculations. The low range is $60 a year. The high part of that range is $200, with an average being $70 on an annual basis. And just as a point of comparison, we obviously couldn't put every single parcel up here showing what the assessment would be. But the amount that the golf course would, and there's only one, so I didn't give you ranges, would be roughly $11,600. So just by point of comparison, that is a property that is large and would pay a significant portion of the assessment. Yes, sir.
A large number of townhouse representatives here, what would that be? Would that be similar to the attached single family?
I believe in most cases it would be similar to the attached single family. Yeah.
So you would get a separate bill if this passes every year, not including with your property tax, you would get a separate bill from the city every year to pay this assessment?
The question was, would you get a separate bill every year to pay this assessment? And the answer to that is no. This is a separate line item on your regular property tax bill. So you would see a line item and it would say something like, Neptune Drive Assessment District, and it would be the, whatever your particular parcel's levy is. And so it would be added to that general property tax bill on an annual basis. Yes.
When you were talking about the properties that pay more have more weight, so would the golf course, for example, their vote be 8 times what a detached residence?
The question was, would the ballot, because they are weighted by the amount of the assessment, does that affect who has the power to approve the assessment? And the answer is yes. The ballot is weighted by the assessment amount attributed to each parcel. And so the ballot that you receive will be weighted by the amount of your assessment. So if your parcel is 1/100th of the total dollar amount being assessed, then you would have one of those 100 votes. Does that make sense? Sir?
You mentioned that the assessment lasts 30 years.
A typical bond issue is 30 years. There's a chance it could be less. Sometimes we see a 20-year bond issue, especially for lower dollar amounts. I know $2 million doesn't sound low, but in the bond world it is. So we have not determined the ultimate financing, which is why these are kind of rough numbers at this point. We're just not at that point in the process yet. We're here to get information and give you some information about what we're seeing, but also get information from you and find out if this is something you want. We won't start with the engineering process to form the assessment district if we hear everyone say, we are not interested.
So I'm looking at these numbers, right? If we looking at these numbers, it seems like we are paying
Well, you have interest on bonds. So your principal amount of your assessment would be equal to the project cost, right? But you're going to pay some level of interest on the debt, for sure.
You could pay, you can tell them about, you can pay in advance.
So a couple things. With this type of assessment district, we will do what's called a cash collection period, which means if it's approved, we would mail letters to all of you to say, here is your share of the construction cost, net of any financing costs. Okay, so you're not funding a bond reserve, you're not funding the bond issuance and the folks that would need to be involved in that. You would get a letter that gives you an amount to pay. And if you want to pay that amount up front, you can pay that amount up front, be done with it. There's nothing ever on your property tax bill. After that cash collection period is over, you have the opportunity as a property owner to prepay your assessment really at any time. So you would call, you would get a payoff quote, just like if you were going to pay off, say, a car loan early or your mortgage early, you would call, you'd get the payoff amount, and you would then be able to prepay the remainder of the assessment. At that point, you would have those bond costs in the number, but you would still save on those future years of interest. Yes, ma'am.
Just a note, incredibly low interest rate environment, so the amount of interest on the bonds is not going to be that great. Another thing is that a gentleman back here made a point about the livability of the area and whether or not you'd be able to sell your home and that sort of thing. I think personally, this is incredibly cheap for what you're trying to do.
I second that.
Incredible.
I was gonna start to, you look
I
at
mean,
the value of your properties right here, and
you
what that's
can't-
costing you
yeah.
for an annual fee,
Yeah,
to me, that's next to nothing.
yeah, I agree with you.
I'm not
So,
wealthy, but that's next to nothing. Right, Drew?
Considering what you're getting for it, which if you get removed off that map, I happen to be a commercial banker, I deal with this stuff all the time. You get the property moved off the map, it's gonna make a huge difference in what your property's worth.
Did everyone in the back hear those comments, or do I need to repeat those?
I mean, if you're saying $10,000, I'd be going, oh my gosh, but 150 average, really?
Right. And again, this is a 30-year term, and there will be more information as we get closer and further along in the process. It may be that we hear from a lot of folks that say, we don't want this for 30 years. Instead of paying $150 for 30 years, we'd be comfortable paying, I don't know, $170 for 20 years, and maybe that looks better. So, I mean, we'll be able to give you some different scenarios when we get a little bit further along with that process. Yes. And I will say, while interest rates are low right now, we never know what's going to happen with them. Hopefully they stay low for a while still.
Sorry. So I want to add something real quick. I am Pablo. You receive the emails because I send them to you. I update the website, provide all the information there. This is very, very important. So we receive 83 responses. We're going to, at some point, we're going to send ballots out. There are about 1,000 properties in this district. The most important thing you can do, if you agree with this being a good deal for you, is to reach out to your neighbors. Look at the website. I posted twice a link to a web map that actually shows you the properties that's actually responded to the survey. It's actually plotted in green. You can tell, in fact, I drove the district today, your neighborhood, and I was looking for those properties that didn't respond. And at one point I wanted to get out and knock on the doors, but they don't know me, so I thought, well, that's probably not a good idea. But you live here. You can go to the website anytime. I will continue to update the map whenever anybody calls or if they're part of the process. I can set up a new map for people who are in the mailing list. And this way you can actually drive down the street. You can put that on your phone. I did it today. It will actually find your location. And you can see green, not green. Yeah, you can see it, every property. And you can knock on their doors and let them know to go to the website, get the information. This way, when they receive the ballot, they're not surprised and turn this down, right? Which is what typically happens. If they're part of the process and they understand it, as you do, there's a good chance that this will pass. So that's my input. Thank you. Yes. It's going to be on YouTube.
When do you anticipate sending out the ballots? Do we have any kind of?
We're not exactly sure. I think we were looking at assessment engineering taking place mainly in the spring.
Late spring, summer next year.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's not a question of should we do it or shouldn't we do it. We should build that, but the city should pay for it. For 10 years on the city council, I voted for things that didn't benefit everybody in the city, and the city paid for it. We just are going to spend millions of dollars on a swimming pool, Fairleigh Pool. How many of you are going to benefit from that? The city's paying for it. $2 million is less than 1% of the city budget. They should be paying for this, and we should be contacting every city council person, including the mayor, because it's a vote-at-large system in San Leandro, and we should insist that the city pay for this, just like every one of you are paying for the swimming pools that you're not going to use up in other parts of the city.
Do you have some figures for cash payout option that you mentioned? Preliminary figures?
Not yet.
Thank you.
We're not quite that far along in the process yet.
When you think about a cash payout provision, consider the time value of money. It's better to finance it. Because a dollar today is worth a lot more theoretically than it will be worth over a 30-year period. So just consider that.
Can I get your telephone number?
Well, we did.
Yes, sir. Hold on. We've got a question over here.
Do these numbers take into account the general benefit already? Is that already paid for before you came to these estimated early guess numbers?
Yes, we've been conservative so that we don't come back to you later and give you a higher number, but we have conservatively estimated the financing costs as well as the general benefit. Yes, sir.
So after the project is completed, are we going to see a tax benefit in our FEMA bill? Our national flood insurance?
Well, that's the idea is that once the levee is constructed, then your flood insurance, you're removed from that special hazard zone of the flood, and so if you pay flood insurance, where's the person, I think she left, who doesn't pay flood insurance? You know, if you don't pay any flood insurance, then you're paying an assessment that is an additional cost. If your flood insurance currently costs you, someone said $4,300 a year, you should be removed from the special hazard zone. I don't know that you'll have no flood insurance, but you would come down to theoretically a lower level, but I'm not the insurance company, so I can't guarantee what they may or may not do.
It's not the insurance company. At some point, information goes out to all the other 1,000 homeowners that aren't here, that in fact, this is the benefit of having this built. That everything will be remediated, and then we could get out of it, and either we could eliminate or reduce your flood insurance, and the impact that you can now sell your house without a problem or whatever. I just think people need to know that, because the first reaction is, why do I want to pay an assessment for something? I just feel somehow this needs to get out.
But if the ones that don't want to come are going to come no matter what, because they're too busy.
But if they're going to mail something to people, they're going to mail about, they can just contact the city.
Yeah, there will be additional information sent out to property owners as well. In the back?
Maybe for the next meeting, you could contact FEMA and have a representative from FEMA here,
Is that?
Yes.
So that we can, address the questions directly to them?
Yes, because we'll probably, at that time, we'll probably have put in, or at least have a draft, conditional letter of map revision. And that's when they start to evaluate the process, and we can go into more detail on that part in terms of how it changes your flood rate designation. And then I'm hoping that you'll be able to have that information in time that you can talk to your insurers and your bankers, and they can give you an idea of how that impacts your insurance bill.
I just wanted to say two things, and then I'm going to yield the mic to whoever. I'm Pete Ballou, City Councilman from this district, and my first thing is that I'm super proud to be representative of this district and all San Leandrons, but there's some really smart people in this room. Your questions aren't good questions, they're not great questions, they're superior questions. And some of them, we've thought about almost all of these. I think the engineering staff has, but there's a couple that you've given them to think about a little more. The second thing I want to do is follow up on what former Councilmember Prola said. The City Council, we work for you. We represent you, all 6 plus the mayor. If you have feelings about the funding, I'll tell you candidly, I've had conversations with our city manager about what we can do to reduce the cost to the people in the assessment district here. I won't go into detail about what those are, but I've been pushing. The problem is, it's a council decision, so we need 4 votes. So you can talk to the council. And then, there may be a share, maybe some, half, 25. I don't know what it's going to look like. But you can reach out to us. We're all on the city council website. You can email all of us with 1 click. You can call, all our phone numbers are on there. You can call, you can reach out, and you can certainly talk to, John knows, you can certainly talk to me. I'll get back to you within a day. But it's going to be, the city council is going to have some involvement in this. If you have strong feelings, reach out one way or the other. And I just want to give some props. I want to give a little bit of acknowledgement to Keith, and our engineer and his team, because they have worked as quickly as any engineering team works on these things. With John and I live in Seagate, we've had some dealings with the county. They're not as quick as we'd like to be. The city, they're still quick on this one, but they're ahead of it. Keith and his team has done, believe it, a marvelous job on moving this forward and getting it on the front of the agenda. So thank you for that. Oh yeah, I said end scene.
Yes,
Gentleman here.
On the estimated assessments, the other interested parties, like the railroads was mentioned the last time. Are they interested in divvying up any money?
I don't know if they're interested, but they've been assigned an assessment.
So the other players, the developers, and
Yes, absolutely. There is one little strange, and it's just a really weird parcel. Sometimes that happens on the assessor maps, but there's one little strange kind of sliver of land that is like 0.01 acres, or it was this little bitty strange thing that is not being assessed. It's obviously undeveloped and what have you. But other than that, all the public property, the railroad, any other property, everyone on that map in red is assigned an assessment amount. I don't know where Mission Bay is, so it's
That's a different problem.
okay.
That's not this at all.
Okay, but those parcels in red, they would all pay the assessment. Okay, yes, sir.
When would FEMA issue the conditional letter of map revision?
Say it again.
When would FEMA issue the conditional letter of map revision as a result of all the engineering and stuff?
At completion of design. When design is complete.
When is that estimated to be?
Spring next year. The city writes the letter and sends it to FEMA saying, please look at this, we would like to apply for a map revision. Does this meet your conditions?
So you can't start construction till you get that approval?
No, we're not.
We don't
Yes.
want to.
And how long do you think it would take them to, any time frame?
I think that first review is like 3 months.
3 months is a typical turnaround period.
Because I know the county took a long time.
Well, yes, it can take a while, unfortunately. We're going to try, we're shooting for construction in October 2020. So we'll be pushing as fast as we can to get that letter from FEMA. But things can come up, you know, if you have a whole series of calamities, they pull all their staff and they're not doing anything, or if they have a budget shutdown, they can be closed for a month. So there's a lot of things that can happen. We're just going to try to keep pushing as fast as we can so that everything comes together October 2020 and we're doing construction. But there's a lot of variables, unfortunately.
Because we're trying to do our budget now, right, Bud, and try to forecast how long we're going to be in the penalty zone.
Well, I understand, so that's why we're pushing.
And you better be close.
Working on it.
You can tell.
Do we have a special vulnerability when they take down the old part of the levee? And we're having, that's when we have the king tides and more rain? Are we?
Well, the king tides are December, January, and February. So we should be done by then. We should be done like early December, November, ideally. It's 2 months of construction.
Okay.
So we start, you know, end of September, October. There's a defined time period that you need to do the work and then get out. So our goal is to get in and get out, and you know, king tides are usually January. Sometimes they can be December, but mainly January and February.
Thank you.
What happens if the assessment isn't passed?
Well, a lot of different, you know, all outcomes.
Keep paying insurance.
Yeah.
Well, historically, what's happened? Do we have these kind of assessments?
This is very rare.
I can't either. Well, especially we consider that they have the right FEMA to raise rates as much as 18%. 18% annually. Okay, so I would think that we might want to pass this assessment. I think that very strongly.
Well, were you still have more?
I'm done.
Well, okay, well, Sarah, thank you, Danielle. I really want to thank all of y'all for coming out. So this has been a great interaction. I've learned a lot, and you'll continue to hear from us. Please share this information with your neighbors, your friends, people that you come in contact with. And all good.
Thank you all.